welcome. I'm going to show you guys how to make a circular or radial health meter, magic meter, turbo meter, whatever. This is going to be a three-part series. So the first part I'm going to show you how to design the meter. Second part I'm going to show you how to properly import and set up the UI in Unity. And third part we will implement all of the C# scripting. Alright, let's get started. So I specifically wanted this kind of layout with the different bars layered next to each other. I just think that looks really cool. And the way I did that was here in Illustrator. So I've already put together this file. This is a 4K layout. So I looked at this and like, okay, so I'm going to want 4 buttons in the center. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to need about that much space. So I'll make my first guy over here. And this will be like the first component of my bar. So this looks cool. Another thing that you want to keep in mind when you're doing this is white is a great color to start with 2D assets for Unity, because maybe you want a green bar or a blue bar, or you think like a red outline would look cool. You can definitely do that here, you know, whatever color you want. But in order to save file space and everything, I recommend white, because when you go into Unity here, see my health bar, how I made it blue? If I go to my health, I made it white so that I can overlay any color I want on top of it. And it's so easy to change in Unity. You may as well save your file space and just make it white so that you can go in the game and change it if you'd like. Back to Illustrator. Alright, so back to the rotate tool. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to center this so that this center line is here, and I want it to rotate about around that much around it. So I'm going to grab the rotate tool, make sure the shape that you want is selected, and with just the left mouse tool you're going to set your center pivot. Just set it here for easy reference, and then with your left mouse button, see, now your object rotates around this center pivot, which is really cool and handy. But I don't just want to rotate this one object, I want to make a bunch of them so that I get that cool circular meter. So you hold down Alt while you're left clicking, and that will make your first duplicate of this one rotated around the same axis. And this awesome feature in Illustrator, which saves me so much time, is you can just hit Control D and it duplicates that action over and over again, which is great. So the tricky part with this is just making sure that your last one lines up nicely with this. You know, you can go back, make the spacing a little bit more for the first one, or if it's about where you want, you can individually take and just move these guys as you please. Like, oh well, this is pretty close, I guess. That's pretty close too. It just depends on how technical you want to get, how detailed your UI needs to be. I think I used this method for part of it, but see, if you do like that, it doesn't look so bad. That being said, I'm looking at the thickness of all these right now, and I don't really like how thick all the... Okay, well, I'm just going to delete the background. Alright, so I'm going to grab all these, and I'm going to lessen the stroke. I think 2 looks good. I like how that looks. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to import this into Photoshop. I'm going to select all this using the Select tool, Control-C, copy it, go into Photoshop, and here I have set up a full 4K screen as well, so I can see what it's going to kind of look like as part of the UI. So I'm going to paste, and when I'm pasting, the most damage-free way, it won't deteriorate your files if you choose Path. If you're familiar with the pen tool, awesome. If not, I highly recommend learning it. So I'm going to go to the pen tool, which creates paths in Photoshop, and then I'm going to hit A so that I can select my path, select all of it, and then I'm going to go free transform. And at this point, I'm going to just put it on the screen where I think it would look cool. Like when I was making this UI, I thought, oh, maybe I'll put it in the corner, that would look nice, but my player is primarily going in the right direction during play, so the player's eyes will be more on the right side of the screen, so I decided to put it down here. I thought, okay, that looks pretty decent. So you can make it as big as you want. If you hold down Shift, that'll uniformly scale it so that you don't lose the nice perfect circular shape that we just made in Illustrator. I'm going to put that right here for now. And one thing that I like to do is just very clearly name everything. So I'll just make this health bar 0. Ever since I started working with Unity, I always start my counts with 0 since that's how their software works. So in the layers panel, I'm going to make a new layer that's separate from the background so it's easy to move around. I'm going to call this health bar outline. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is select your path, make sure it's highlighted, go to your layer, make sure the layer that you want is highlighted. Again, hit A, select all of it, make sure that the whole path is selected. And I like to stroke these lines with a brush, and I'll go in here and prep what I want the stroke to look like. Do I want it to be really thick? Do I want it to have, you know, some fade on the end? For this one, I'm going to give it about, I like to go even numbers here, I'll give it about 20% softness, and I actually want it 2 pixels wide, just like it was in Illustrator. So I'm going to hit A again, hit right click, and we want to stroke the path, which means that we're going to basically trace around the lines of the path. And I want to use the brush that I just prepared here, which is 2 pixels and kind of smooth. So there we go. I just stroked that. And we'll deselect the path so you can see. And now you can see I have a nice outline here of this radial meteor. So now that we have this shape, sometimes you'll want to duplicate a layer. You do that by hitting Control J. And now you can see the outline a little clearer. I'm going to merge these together so I have a super crisp outline. Okay, so that's my outline. Now the fun part, I want to make a cool fill for it. That way I can have this effect as it fills. See how the blue goes up and down. So we're going to make the fill for our bar right now. I'll start with a solid color, and then I'll show you how to put a pattern or a rainbow or whatever like I did here. Okay, so for a simple outline, we're going to want to, or a simple fill, we're going to want to put this in. So I'm going to just call this solid fill. And then I'm going to go back to my paths. I'm going to click on the health bar, hit letter A, select all my path, and I'm going to make a selection out of this. And what this does is it makes a simple Photoshop selection where it has the marching ants, as they call it, around. So now I can fill this with the color. And like I was saying before, you can fill it with any color you want. I recommend white because it's really easy to change inside Unity, so that's what I'm going to use here. I'm going to deselect it. Alright, so now I have my fill. I have my outline. I have my fill. And what I'm going to do is I like how when my bar is empty, there's still kind of a faint shadow of the white. I'll show you what it looks like without here. So without it, it's very clear, but I like that there's that kind of shadow there. I think it looks nice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control J, copy this, and I want this to be part of the static layer that's just always there, and I'm going to go transparent fill. But you can also change that opacity in Unity, so I'm going to put it at 75% here. So 75, 75. Yeah, I guess you could just technically use this layer, but for the sake of completeness, I'm going to keep it like this. Okay, so 75, 75, that's still a little bit too much, I think. I'm going to make it 60. There we go. Okay, moving on. So now we have our solid fill. Let's see, I'll show you how I did my rainbow one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to name it rainbow. And I'm going to get a square, because that's what I started with. Looks like let's see, it's 3.14 ... times my radius. I don't want to do that right now. Okay, so without getting too technical about it, this is the rainbow gradient that I chose, and you could choose any gradient that you want, really. I like this kind of rainbow instead of the traditional one for my purposes. Alright, so let's get our rainbow. Let's put it in a bar. Make sure it goes from one end to the other by dragging it all through the length of your rectangle. There's our rainbow. Alright, now the fun part. Okay, so this took me a minute to figure out how to do it. Okay, what is the easiest way to wrap this around a circle? And I mean, there is no really super easy way. The let me know if there's an easier way to do this, but the way that I did it is I made a copy of this rainbow bar. I'm going to hide the original so it's kind of out of the way. And I am going to start manually moving it. So what I want to do is I want this to, for sure, be inside the outlines all the way around. And I'm going to do, I think I used stored, so I'm going to hold down Control while I do this, and it's going to distort this rainbow in a way that kind of makes it look like it belongs going around in a circle. So let's pull this up. Cool. All right, so there's one part of it here. All right, I'm going to quickly do this. Okay, so that's how you basically do it. There we go. So I'm just going to blur that so that there's not a definite line there. And you can get pretty precise with this. I'm not going to go too crazy right now since this is a demo. I want to move things along. So anyway, this is the pattern that I would like to go underneath my outline. And how I'm going to make that work is I'm going to select this layer here by hitting Control and clicking on the layer. So now I've selected all of these different cells, and I'm going to go back to my rainbow copy, re-show it, and then I'm going to click the mask button, and that automatically puts a mask of those cells over this rainbow, and that's how you get the texture. And one thing that was really helpful for me when I was making this is once I get the size that I like, I want to put everything inside this kind of unit over here in its own size file. That way they layer perfectly on top of each other. I don't have to sit there in Unity and line things up. Alright, now that we have our circular meter, I'll show you how I did the buttons as well. So kind of similar, I just took my shape tool here and I'm holding down Shift to make a perfect circle. It seems about the size of a button, right? Okay, so I'm going to make actually a new layer, put it all here, I'm going to call it buttons. Actually, this is going to be the outline. Again, it saves so much time just to clearly label everything, because with UI projects like this, unless I'm doing it efficiently, it seems like I'm going to be using a lot of layers for this type of thing. Alright, so again, I want to stroke this, and the options are slightly different here. I want it to have like it on the center. Alright, and again, I'm going to duplicate this, make it extra bright, merge it together, and I'm going to put this right in the center here. Control J to duplicate that, hold down Control Shift to evenly space it. That looks about right. I'm going to Control J again, drag our new buddy until he's in the center here, and oops, and I'm going to drag it till it looks about even. That looks about even, right? So I'm looking at the distance here, here, and here. I'm going to duplicate this one again, drag it over here. Looks about even. Alright, so then you have your button outlines. I'm going to merge, or actually should I merge these together? Okay, so what I'm going to do, since you have to make each individual button, I'm going to take all 4 of these, duplicate them, and then merge them together. And this is going to be my outline shadow. So the shadow files are static. They'll always be there. They're not going to change with input like this, like the rainbow ring as you use. Oh, my UI went away. So as you use your turbo, it's going to go up and down. But this, on the other hand, is going to stay in the background. And each one of these buttons, I'm just going to do something real simple here. So like I'll use the Xbox's layout, my favorite controller, A. And let's resize this. Alright, I think that's good. So again, we want to clearly label this. So I'm another tedious part is just lining all these up. So what I'm going to do is I want the outline shadow to be like 50%, kind of soft in the background. That way when there's no activity, it doesn't draw the eye too much, and when there is activity, you're like, oh, that's cool. So see, like when the player presses X, that's going to show up. All right, I'm going to line these buttons up with each other. So I'm going to take the X, with this one. Okay, so I'm going to rasterize this type, put this down, and this is going to be X. Okay, so now we have all the different components to make a really simple UI. So make sure you save your file as a PSD, very important. So I'm going to do okay. And you want to make sure you have layers checked and all of that. So save, make sure it's all saved, make sure your path is there. It'll be helpful later when you come back and make adjustments. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this layer by layer. And that's important so that you can make all the different components of your UI more interactive. And I'll show you why later. Alright, I'm going to speed this up and save. Oh, final note, remember to uncheck the background. You don't want a black square, or maybe you do, but for my purposes, I want this to be transparent in the background, so I'm going to disable the background. And another cool feature that Photoshop has, if you hit Alt and click, it hides all the layers for you, which is really helpful when you're doing a project like this. So I'm going to, again, hide the background layer and save each individual layer as its own file. So this is the end file that we have. It's pretty similar to mine. Mine has a couple different elements, some custom buttons, but all the elements are there. So I'm going to show you how to set that up now.